What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and this is going to be the mid-season 7-round mock. Trade deadline passed by. What a day that was. The most exciting trade deadline in NFL history. It has to be. I don't remember any trade deadline in my lifetime that had that many big moves. But now all the picks are settled until the end of the season when people can make trades again. I think is the best time to do the first 7-round mock of the year, the mid-season 7-round mock. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any more of the videos. I got some more betting advice, even though last week didn't go all that well. Sorry about that. It's the NFL's fault. It's so unpredictable. And nothing's more unpredictable than the NFL draft, and nothing is more unpredictable about being more unpredictable than a 7-round mock. So be gentle as I go through it, and let's do it. All right, just a quick note here. We use the NFL mock draft database website to do this, and their picks are a little wonky in terms of like the rounds. So if you see something where it's like that's clearly a 6th round pick, not 7th round pick, they kind of just backloaded the entire 7th round, and then every other round was just 32 picks. So with the comp picks, it got kind of messed up. But anyway, that's really irrelevant. Pay attention more to the overall number rather than the round. So we're going to start with the Arizona Cardinals. We're going to go in order. We'll start with the NFC, go through the AFC at the end. And with the 11th pick, Joey Porter Jr., I'm grabbing Nolan Smith as well. I think the two biggest issues they have are corner and edge. So I think addressing those two spots early on is going to be imperative for them. I'm grabbing Kenny McIntosh, running back from Georgia. Yeah, I think that I don't know what's going on with James Conner. You got Benjamin. You got guys that are working in there, but they're another one of those teams that the running back by committee thing I think is going to be in their best interest. And then with their other 3rd round pick, Matthew Bergeron, tackle, figure out that offensive line. I also got to grab Kyle Blue, Kelly there with an early 4th round pick to again add to that cornerback room, which is actually very, very weak. And then those 6th and 7th round picks, it was just a lot of grabbing some defensive depth, another edge guy, an interior guy, another linebacker with some upside, the Liatu Latu, high upside guy, and then just a Johnny Wilson. Maybe he'll end up being a special teams player, something like that. These are late round picks. You're hoping to really just hit a home run with somebody in camp and OTAs, and if not, it's really a low risk to end up sort of moving on from them or practice squatting them. And then here comes the Atlanta Falcons, and they did trade away Calvin Ridley, and they did need a wide receiver long before that, but now more than ever. So I gave him Jordan Addison. He was the best wide receiver available at that 19th pick. Put him out there with Drake London. You can see there in the 5th round, we're going to jump ahead a little bit, I also had them grab Jermaine Burton, another wide receiver. They need weapons, man. And I got them sticking with Desmond Ridder, so they are getting weapons. Jaheim Bell is another one that I got them grabbing there in the 5th round. I got them taking Zach Evans in the 2nd round, a running back to put in there with Cordero Patterson, and this past year's, I think it was a 4th round pick, Tyler Algier. You don't know where you're going to get really with Cordero Patterson. Will you want to extend him? What's his price tag going to be? So, keeping that running back room fresh is going to be the quarterback's best friend. And that's why I also grabbed Jaheim Bell. Then I got 2 defensive linemen, Byron Young, an interior guy, put him next to Grady Jarrett. And then Adebayor from Northwestern, another edge guy. They got D'Angelo Malone and Lorenzo Carter. They got some interesting edge guys in here. There just wasn't one that sort of fell into these positions where I felt comfortable taking them at that point, so they kind of got the short end of the stick there. Got them grabbing some depth offensive linemen, Andrew Rame, Graham Barton, and then just Daniel Scott, a defensive back to help out there on the back end. And here's Carolina, and I got them taking Will Levis with the 3rd pick. Now, I understand people are screaming at the top of their lungs about Will Levis being a top 3 pick, but just with the way everything's sort of working out, unless Carolina's bringing in some sort of veteran out of nowhere where they're going to feel comfortable not getting their franchise quarterback with this high of a draft capital this year, they got to swing at Will Levis. They go in the 2nd round, get an edge rusher in Andre Carter. I got him grabbing a center in Jarrett Patterson there, help out that offensive line. And I got them grabbing a receiver in Rashee Rice there in the third. A running back, Deuce Vaughn, to pair him with Chuba Hubbard. So I did a lot of looking at getting something for Will Levis with some of these early picks while still addressing the edge rusher position. It still looks like Brian Burns is going to stick around anyway. So the edge rusher is not, I would say, that high of a priority, especially because this edge rusher class is actually quite good. And with that 36 pick, you can get somebody solid. You can even trade up. You got 2 4th round picks there. You could probably trade 120 and then maybe 141 to move up into the back end of the first round if there's a specific edge rusher that you really want to get. But assuming that they don't have to do that, use those picks on Ivan Pace, a linebacker, Mike Morris, an interior defensive lineman, and then grabbing just a depth defensive back there with their final pick. And here are the Chicago Bears, and they traded for Chase Claypool, so I pretty much knocked wide receiver down a couple notches in terms of what their need was, but I did want to invest in Justin Fields with that first pick, and that's taking the best offensive lineman on the board at the time, and that was Peter Skoronski. Then the second round, get Will McDonald. This is your Robert Quinn replacement. Got Dontavian Wicks, the wide receiver out of Virginia. This is where I addressed the wide receiver room. Now you got Mooney, Claypool, Velus Jones, and throwing Dontavian Wicks in there. Grabbed Emil Ekiyor, another offensive lineman. Again, investing in our quarterback. Add another running back in there, Chris Rodriguez. Don't know what's going to happen with David Montgomery. I doubt they're going to pay him, so you get Rodriguez to pair him up with Khalil Herbert. Riley Moss, I'm taking, shout out to the white corners. And then another investment in Justin Fields, which is Cameron Latou, the tight end from Alabama. You got Cole Kmet there. You got, his name escapes me. But tight ends are going to be his best friend. And if you start using Fields the way you say Baltimore uses Lamar Jackson, you're going to need some tight end depth as well. And then just some depth guys there late in the draft, Trace Ford, and then Kayvon Merriweather on the back end. The Dallas Cowboys, I'm taking Bijan Robinson. If he's there on the board at 26, I think he's a lock to be taken by them. Then second round, Malachi Moore, safety, Alabama. Cooper Beebe, there's your left guard. You can now dump Tyron Smith, either trade or cut him. Tyler Smith plays left tackle moving forward. Xavier Hutchinson, add another wide receiver there. To what is a interesting wide receiver room, not very top heavy. There's a lot of middle of the pack depth there. So you maybe draft Hutchinson, insert him into that group, and see if maybe he can be a breakout guy. And then I'm just adding depth the rest of the way out. A depth corner in Hodges Tomlinson, depth linebacker Justin Flo, depth defensive tackle Gabe Hall, depth interior offensive lineman again, and then just another wide receiver, just taking a swing at Jake Bobo, mostly because I liked his name. I'll admit it. The Detroit Lions currently have the first pick. I got him taking Bryce Young, the quarterback out of Alabama, with the first pick at your franchise quarterback. Pick 14, I just took the best weapon available at that spot, and it was Michael Mayer, the tight end out of Notre Dame. He's going to go in, fill the shoes of TJ Hawkinson. I know some people are probably like, why would you do that? My logic is the best weapon on the board at the time, and it was Michael Mayer. He's going to work great in the running game. He's going to work great in the passing game. He's going to be everything that you need a tight end to be, like a George Kittle type of a player. Then with their second round picks, I'm taking Noah Sewell with their own, and then I got him taking Jordan Battle with the one that they acquired from Minnesota. Got him adding another edge guy, Habakkuk Baldonado from Pittsburgh. You can mix him in there with Hutchinson and Pascal. And then just some depth guys again, a depth corner in Tony Grimes, an interior guy, Tyler Lacey, and then a wide receiver, Zachary Franklin. Just swinging. They've done a great job of getting some of these later round guys to find a spot on the team. So, take the at positions of where it could be of benefit, let's say. And here are the Green Bay Packers. Quentin Johnston, wide receiver, TCU. Just take the best receiver on the board at that time, and it was him. Then I'm grabbing Brian Branch, safety, Alabama. That's your Adrian Amos replacement. And then Storm Duck, some cornerback depth. Brenton Cox, another edge rusher depth. And then I added 3 offensive linemen. Jackson Kirkland, who's sort of like a tackle / guard. Ricky Stromberg, who's a sole interior guy. TJ Bass, another interior guy. And then Moro Ajamo, added him as an interior defensive end depth. But really using those those day 3 picks, those late day 3, middle to late day 3 picks on the trenches, which is where Green Bay can really start to strive. And actually they have a 2-headed monster at running back, so they have to figure out a way to get them going, because that's clearly how they, for whatever reason, planned out their team. But I wanted to add Quentin Johnston. I think that's just, at this point, you need somebody who's going to be a top-level wide receiver, and you're hoping that Johnston can be that as a rookie. Put him out there with Dobbs. Christian Watson comes around, and then you're hoping that's your 3 receivers. And here are the Rams, and holy crap, do they have more picks than any of us are used to. We'll start with their first pick in the second round. It's Zion Nelson, tackle. They need to figure that offensive line out. That's why I also added Javian Cohen a little bit later on. Kingsley Eguakun, they're late. Just prioritizing some offensive lineman depth. Edge rusher Derek Hall. They need someone who can rush the passer other than Aaron Donald. I also added Tyler Batty as some defensive line depth in there as well. Added Trey Dean, a safety, there in the 5th round. Also Razon Wright, some depth corner there. Threw some weapons out there. Mitchell Tinsley, a wide receiver. Cameron Peoples, a running back. Benjamin Urasek, a tight end. Just attack all 3 weapons groups there for the offense. I added Aiden O'Connell, quarterback out of Purdue, there in the 6th round. I was just sort of looking at it. I was just like, put somebody in there behind Matthew Stafford. Maybe Sean McVay works some magic, and you never know what this guy can become 3 or 4 years down the line. What is Stafford going to be playing 3 or 4 years from now? You never know. The Minnesota Vikings, first pick, Felix Anudike-Uzomah, edge rusher, Kansas State. I originally had them taking Michael Mayer, but then they traded for TJ Hawkinson, so changed that strategy a bit. Then the 3rd round, Marvin Mims, wide receiver. Thielen's not getting any younger. You're going to need to figure out a way to replenish that receiving corps. And then I took Jaron Hall because he was sort of falling for me. So I figured, this is sort of like the Kellen Mond pick for Minnesota, where it's like you take a guy in with a draft pick that's really low risk. It's not a high level investment, so if he works out, if he catches on in this offense, then you can move on from Kirk Cousins and that big contract and invest that money somewhere else. And if he doesn't, then it's a 4th round pick. It's the 102nd pick in the draft. It's really not like that big of a deal. These picks don't really hit as much, so you're not really wasting it. It's really a shot in the dark. And then I just added with their 6th and 7th round picks, just depth on both sides of the ball. The New Orleans Saints, Tanner McKee, quarterback, Stanford, they got to figure out that position. That's how they're going to figure it out. I also got them taking Jacqueline Roy, defensive tackle. Jalen Catalon, a safety. Muhammad Ibrahim, a running back. He's got some miles on him, but, he would be somebody who would probably be more of a backup role to Alvin Kamara, but a solid backup role. Cortland Ford, just some line depth. Alfred Collins, edge depth. And here's my New York Giants. And with their first pick, I'm taking Kayshon Boutte, the wide receiver, LSU. They need a wide receiver 1. So I'm very upset they didn't, based upon how that trade worked out for Calvin Ridley. I don't understand how they didn't try and top that. Eli Ricks, who's starting to get on the field again, and he probably will go higher than this. It's just difficult to put him higher than this because if he finds his way back to the bench again, I think his draft stock will then stagnate once more. But I think Eli Ricks could be a fantastic cornerback. Andrew Voorhees kind of dropped a bit, picked him up, figuring out that revolving door there at left guard. Deion Henley, linebacker, took Tank Bigsby, who he was dropping. This is sort of like a guy you plug in there for an older Matt Breida. Damani Richardson, safety, Texas A&M. They got some guys on the back end that are free agents coming up, so they might need to replace somebody, either Julian Love, Darnay Holmes is going to be coming up soon. And then a bunch of these picks, I know they're not all 7th round picks, just the way that the website did it, but just grabbing depth, just depth guys at some key positions on the offensive line, interior defensive line, another tight end. I think they're only going to have 2 on the roster at the end of this season. And then just another corner throw out there. You're trying to get some special teamers here. The Philadelphia Eagles, first pick, Brian Breezy. He's a perfect complement to Jordan Davis. His size and his skill set. So that would be a good 3 technique to mix with the nose tackle that is Jordan Davis. I also got him, luxury pick, Jahmyr Gibbs, running back, Alabama. Not going to re-sign Miles Sanders. Zach Harrison, starting to play really well. Draft him, another guy to add to that defensive line. Keep that rotation going, letting guys age out and having guys ready to go. Rashad Torrance, safety, Florida, put him back there, maybe with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson in the future. Trying to figure out that second safety position that they've been desperately trying to figure out for a while now. And then just some depth guys for the defense, depth linebacker, and a depth corner. The shockingly amazing Seattle Seahawks, Cam Smith with that 10th pick, put him out there with Tariq Woolen and Kobe Bryant. What a unit that'll be. I called Tariq Woolen in my grades video on my other channel. When I was doing the sports stuff on the other channel, I gave that pick an A, and I feel like a genius. And that guy, I'm grabbing Anthony Richardson, quarterback, Florida. Now, the logic behind this is you're swinging at a high upside quarterback who doesn't have to play right away. You can franchise tag Geno Smith. And Geno knows the system. Geno can play in the system. Geno can also help pass the knowledge on in the system where you can get 2 more years out of Geno Smith before even having to play Richardson at all. And then you could end up with a really high upside quarterback. Then with their 2nd round picks, I got them grabbing some more defensive help with Trenton Simpson, who kind of fell a bit. These linebackers this year, they're really not doing their draft stock many favors. It's going to be really interesting to see where they end up, especially with Baltimore, who acquired Roquan Smith. So now they're kind of out of that 1st round linebacker conversation, most likely. Gervin Dexter, I'm grabbing an interior guy there. Put him with Shelby Harris, and then you can get some good edge work from Boya Mafe and Uchenna Nwosu. Also throwing in there KJ Henry. A.T. Perry, wide receiver, Wake Forest. I think he's going to be a good compliment in there. Him, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. There's some really good stuff there. And then they got some depth guys like D. Eskridge, of course, Marquise Goodwin, who may not be on the team next year, but I think getting another wide receiver is going to be imperative to this team. Then added some depth offensive linemen, Weipler and Hayes. And then a depth interior guy, Keanu Benton. When you run they're running the 3-4 system, so getting sort of like hybrid type players like Keanu Benton is essential, especially if you end up losing somebody like Shelby Harris to an injury or cap casualty, whatever it might be. And here are the 49ers, and they're a really tough team to draft for. I have taken just a guard, Lane Robinson. Have him take a safety in Proctor. 5th round running back, 6th round tight end. There's not a whole lot that they really have going for them because they picked so late in the draft after the Christian McCaffrey trade and the Trey Lance trade. So it's just, got a lineman, got 2 weapons, another tackle, another wide receiver, just trying to use the picks to try to make the, to make the Trey Lance experience when he comes back from injury maybe a little bit easier. Get him as many guys as you can. And here's the most disappointing team of the year, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm going to use the first pick on Keely Ringo. Chances are they're going to lose Jamel Dean and Sean Murphy-Bunting. So you got Carlton Davis, Keely Ringo, Zion McCollum. Good little group there. I have him grabbing Michael Penix Jr., quarterback out of Washington there in the second round. Brady's probably done after this year. There wasn't a quarterback available at 7 for them to go and get. So they had to settle for that second wave of quarterbacks there in the second round. Got him grabbing Zach Charbonnet, running back UCLA. I could see them letting Fournette go so they can spend that money elsewhere. Akeem Dent, safety Florida State. Mike Edwards, I think, is a free agent coming up. I think that's who it is. So I don't know if they'll be able to bring him back. Drafted another wide receiver, Kalen Stokes. Some tight ends, McAllen Castles, Cade Stover. Some offensive line depth, Cody Mach. And then just grabbing a linebacker, Michael Jones, linebacker of Syracuse. I've seen people take him a lot higher than the 7th round. So either I'm missing a whole lot on him, or he's just one of those players where there's just a clear difference in opinion in the mock draft community. And here's the Washington Commanders. Christian Gonzalez, cornerback, Oregon. Trade away William Jackson. They got to get somebody in there, and Christian Gonzalez was the best one available. Then I got them taking a quarterback, Cameron Ward, because kind of like Tampa Bay, they missed out on that first wave. So I think getting Cameron Ward, Ward versus Heineke versus Howell for the starting quarterback job in Washington. Go for it. JL Skinner, safety there at the 97th pick. Jacoby Wyndham, linebacker, Michigan State, and then just grabbed a couple offensive linemen, Barrington and Glaze. Braylon Trice, some depth edge rusher there, and then Jaden Reed, a wide receiver to throw into the mix as well. Now we're on to the AFC, and we'll start with the Baltimore Ravens. Clark Phillips, the third cornerback out of Utah. They're kind of out of the linebacker in the first round. I did have him take a linebacker in the third round, Owen Popoe. I'm assuming Patrick Queen won't be back, but they have a high-level one in Roquan Smith, so maybe adding a rookie in there to mix him in with whoever else they have as linebacker 2 and 3, I think could be advantageous. Blake Corum, running back. Keep that running back room nice and fresh, baby. And Corum is a great back. He dropped. Certain position groups are going to drop, and for me, it seemed like running backs were the ones that started to drop in the way I was conducting the mocks. Charlie Jones, wide receiver, get a depth receiver in there, and then a depth offensive lineman in Christian Mahogany. The Buffalo Bills, first pick, Antonio Johnson, DB, Texas A&M. This is going to be your third safety, eventually a starting safety. He can play on the outside if you need him to. He's mostly a safety, though, and I think he'll be used mostly as a safety in the NFL. Then the second round, Steve Avila. Figure out that interior position. It's one of the real only weak spots of Buffalo. And then here is what great teams get to do in drafts, is they get to just add fun little toys for their offense. And Zay Flowers will join Stephon Diggs, Gabriel Davis, Khalil Shakir in that wide receiver room. And then Devin Achane, running back, will join James Cook and Naheem Hines if they decide to keep him, who they just traded for. Jordan Morgan, depth offensive tackle. And then Rook or Horo, say that 7 times fast, defensive tackle, Clemson, some just defensive line depth. But again, it's just really focusing on filling the one defensive need you really have, and then just adding pieces. The Cincinnati Bengals, they got to figure out that tackle spot. So Olu Fashanu, taking him. Second round, Garrett Williams. I have him written down as a DB, just like I do with Antonio Johnson. He can play some safety, but I think he'll make most of his time at corner, sort of the opposite of Antonio Johnson. in that sense. Tight end Luke Musgrave, some interior defensive line help, Kobe Wooden, some edge help there late. I took Elijah Higgins. I'm not sure if that's T. Higgins' brother or cousin or something, but I think it would just be funny to have two guys, Higgins, on the roster. And then Nick Herbig, their linebacker, as sort of another depth linebacker for that room. The Cleveland Browns, and I used the first two picks they got on that defensive line. One on the interior, Tyler Davis, and the other on the edge with Jared Verse. It has to happen. They need to figure out that front four of the defense. I also got mad at Parker Washington, the wide receiver out of Penn State. He's a fun little pick. Starting to get some added value, though. So he might not be there that late. Some depth offensive line help, Carter Warren. Some depth guys there on the defense, Garner and Chami. And then just another tight end, Eric All. The Denver Broncos. Wow. I kind of called it. I didn't think they'd be this bad. But I did say they would disappoint. They trade Bradley Chubb, and with that pick, they're going to have Paris Johnson Jr. help out that offensive line. Their next two picks, got them using them on defense. Drew Sanders, linebacker, and Mozzie Smith, nose tackle. Then I got them adding KJ Jefferson, quarterback out of Arkansas. Thought it was just a fun idea that they sort of swing at a quarterback the same way I had Minnesota do it with Jaron Hall. Chase Brown adds some depth into that running back room. I don't know if Chase Edmonds is going to be on that roster. I don't know if he's just a rental for the year. But Chase Brown, adding him in there, you could get rid of Melvin Gordon if you keep Chase Edmonds in this case, but you still need some running back depth because you just don't know if Javonte Williams or even Chase Edmonds, for that matter, will be able to stay healthy. And then a depth corner there, Cameron Mitchell. Now the Houston Texans. And with their first two picks, quarterback CJ Stroud, and then I took the best edge rusher on the board, Tyree Wilson. Get the best quarterback, best edge rusher, most valuable positions on both sides of the ball. And then I invested in the offense over and over and over again. Started with Jalen Duncan. This is your right tackle of the future. Drafted Josh Downs, another weapon in the wide receiver room. I know it's a little redundant with John Mechie, but even with Mechie's diagnosis, even if he ends up well, you still need another weapon in there. Add a center, John Michael Schmitz, help out that position, solidify that position. Add another tight end, Dalton Kincaid. Throw another wide receiver out there, Tyler Harrell. Then I went back to the defense, valuable defensive position, edge rusher, another one, Xavier Thomas. Took Jake Moody, gets 3 points. Help out your offense. Evan Hall, depth running back. And then Justin Jacobs, Jeremy Banks, two linebackers, mostly special teamers type of a deal. But last year we saw them invest heavy in the defense. They got Christian Harris, a starting linebacker. They got Derek Stingley, a top corner. They got Jalen Pitre, their safety. Now I went and got them their edge rusher, Tyree Wilson, to put opposite Jonathan Grenard. And then the rest of it went all to the offense, which is in desperate need of improvement. I'm also going to assume Lovie Smith isn't going to be the coach. So throwing in probably an offensive-minded coach to get the new franchise quarterback going. And all these new toys, I think, will be a lot of fun to watch. The Indianapolis Colts, and yes, they're reaching for a quarterback at 15 with Hendon Hooker because they need one more than anybody. But I'm going to make his transition a little bit easier by adding Jalen Hyatt, his college teammate, in the second round at wide receiver. Put him there with Pittman and Alec Pierce with Jelani Woods. And then you got, of course, Jonathan Taylor in the backfield. They need some corner help, so I threw DJ Turner there in the third round. Added an offensive lineman from Michigan, Oluwatimi. Another depth DB and Jay Ward. Some more depth on the offensive line, Tyler Steen. Depth corner, Anthony Johnson. And then another depth defensive tackle. The Jacksonville Jaguars, the up and down team. Don't know what you're going to get every week. So I drafted Jalen Carter, just the best player on the board. Second round, drafted Osiris Torrance. Figure play that left guard position that seems to be a revolving door. Took Jamie Robinson, safety out of Florida State. Tucker Kraft, a tight end. Chris Abrams-Drain, throw another corner out there. Mayan Williams, running back. He'll sort of come in, be that backup role, hopefully, to Travis Etienne, who really ripped that spot away from James Robinson, who got traded away. Aeneas Smith, wide receiver, throw him out there. I didn't prioritize wide receiver because of the Calvin Ridley trade. Just point that out. Drafted depth corner, depth tackle. But that's why I went the route that I did with this and not taking a wide receiver until that point. Just because it's so... Calvin Ridley just enters this team and it changes their needs at that position, I think, quite drastically. The Kansas City Chiefs, and with their first 2 picks, I addressed their front 4. Isaiah Foskey at 25, an edge rusher for opposite George Karlaftis. And then Tuli Tuipulotu, put him next to Chris Jones in that defensive tackle 2 type of a role. Orlando Brown is probably not going to be on the team next year. So I took Blake Freeland because even if they do keep him, that right tackle spot is going to be a bit of a nightmare. With some 2 out of 3 picks there in the 4th round, took a running back, Sean Tucker, took a wide receiver, Cornelius Johnson, get some toys for the offense. A depth linebacker in Ventrell Miller, took a punter, Torrey Taylor, because why not? Grayson Murphy, some depth edge there. Quindell Johnson, safety, Memphis, some depth there at safety. And then took some fun picks, in my opinion. An Old Dominion tight end, Zach Kuntz, and Shepherd quarterback, Tyson Bagent, because I wanted him to get picked. Because I love a quarterback from a school that literally no one has ever seen play. Here are the Chargers. Siaki Ika, defensive tackle, Baylor. They got some veterans there, but a lot of them are on short-term deals. Somebody solid in that position. Then use the next 3 picks on the biggest offensive needs they have. Darnell Washington, tight end, Georgia. Dante Demas, get another wide receiver in their room. And then Darnell Wright, who can hopefully be that right tackle next to Zion Johnson. You're really hoping that. And then Ronnie Hickman, depth DB, and then some depth in the front 7 with Weaver and Isaiah Land. The Vegas Raiders, I have them taking Miles Murphy with the 6th pick. They got 2 pressures against the Saints. Chandler Jones is giving them nothing. So they need to figure out a way to get some type of solid rotation, at least going there at the edge, to maybe move guys around, put them in more advantageous situations to get pressure on the quarterback. And if they can't get pressure on the quarterback, even with that, they need cornerback help. Devin Witherspoon, grabbed him. Then I got Wanya Morris, tackle out of Oklahoma. Hopefully he's what they wanted Alex Leatherwood to be. Chris Smith fell for me, so they grabbed him. This is the Jonathan Abram replacement. This might be a little low for him. I've seen people try to put Chris Smith in the 1st round. I am not that type of a guy. Noah Daniels, some depth corner work there. And then, just some depth guys really the rest of the way out. Devin Leary, shout out to him, quarterback, NC State. The Miami Dolphins, and I got them taking Emmanuel Forbes. They're going to have to probably dump one of their top corners, so they're going to have to replenish that spot pretty quick. Then they took DeMarvin Overshone, linebacker out of Texas. I think you can pair him up with Channing Tindall and have a good little group there. Nick Broker, tackle. Figure out that right tackle position. I think that this could really help with that. They get Ali Gay, mix him in there with the rest of the edge guys. Tippmann and Frazier, some more offensive line depth where they desperately need it. The New England Patriots. First, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Devontae Parker, Tyquan Thornton, JSN. Great 3 wide receiver group moving forward for this team. Henry Tuotuo, linebacker, Alabama. Just sounds like a Patriot player. Then I'm grabbing Tyreek Stevenson, cornerback out of Miami. You can put him with Jack Jones and then whoever they have in the slot, Marcus Jones. Is it Marcus Jones from Houston? He can play in the slot there. And, replenish a young cornerback room. You really aged out that position pretty badly. Some edge depth with Zion Tupuloa Fatui, Tyke Smith, some safety help. Another interior defensive lineman, Cansey. Their typical every year draft a running back there with Tavian Thomas. Harrison Mevis, because why not draft a kicker? And then, again, offense and defensive line depth, Zinter, Juergens, and Rodgers. Just trying to get in the head of Bill Belichick and the type of drafting that he does. So I went linebacker, edge, and a bunch of linemen, a running back, some DBs. And the New York Jets. Man, what a team. Broderick Jones is going to come in, take over one of those tackle spots. Jack Campbell will come in and be that linebacker one. Brandon Joseph will be that safety there on the back end. Sam Laporta can come in and compete for that tight end one position. And just like they did this year, another draft class where their top 4 picks are all potential starters on day one. Throw some depth there with Clark and Dorless on the defense. The Pittsburgh Steelers, I got taking Will Anderson at number 4. You got Joe Burrow, Deshaun Watson, and I'm assuming Lamar Jackson in your division. You got to figure out how to pressure the quarterbacks on a regular basis. And pairing up him with TJ Watt could be a real beastly combination. Then you got to figure out the offensive line, so I'm taking Anton Harrison. I know they traded for William Jackson, but I still think they need some cornerback help. I still think cornerback should be somewhat of a priority on day 2. So I took Jalen Jones for that. Took Cedric Tillman, wide receiver, Tennessee, there in the 3rd round. Mix him in with Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, and then Calvin Austin, who's more of like a gadget type of a player. Zach Pickens, some defensive line depth. Nick Hampton, another edge depth. And then Davis Allen, tight end depth. Again, you're looking probably a couple special teamers there, best case scenario. And the Tennessee Titans. Start with B.J. Ojulari. Bud Dupree's not the answer. And if Harold Landry's not having a good game, you kind of got nothing going on there. Tackle DeJuan Jones. You're hoping that him maybe and Nicholas Petit-Frere could be your tackles going forward of the future. Maybe Dylan Radunes gets worked in there as well. Raheem Jarrett, wide receiver, Maryland. Put him out there with Treylon Burks and Kyle Phillips, who should be a nice little young group moving forward. Josh Wiley, a 5th-round pick who could possibly find his way into the starting lineup. Then, depth linebacker D. Winters, another depth wide receiver in Jalen McMillan. And there it is, all 32 teams, all the picks, a lot of work. A lot of work for me to most likely be very, very wrong. But we do this for fun, not necessarily for accuracy. And thanks for soldiering on through with me through all that. Holy crap. But like the video and leave your comments about what I did with your team in particular, maybe some controversial picks in there, and subscribe to this channel. Let's get these channels numbers up. It's a brand new channel, so let's just help a brother out. All right? See you next time.